Tennessee, we've got modified heat racer, car number 12, Justin O'Brien. Justin, tell us what it's like to win a heat race at Bristol Motor Speedway.
It's a pretty big deal. Obviously, just the atmosphere around here, and we're racing in a stadium. It's crazy. I mean, we wouldn't know if there's 150,000 people here or one person here. It still looks like it's full just because it's just all over. Everything looks the same down here in the infield.
Awesome. So tell us about the racetrack and what the car feels, and does the car feel any different going down the straightaway? Or
yeah, for sure. The track has a ton of grip, even if it looks slick. It has started to slick off a little more tonight. Now it's raining, so it's not good, but it's been better and started to slow up a little bit, but you're still going so fast here that it's crazy. When you go down the straightaway, your car is just almost dancing around in the air, and you really feel like you're going that fast. I mean, it's not like scary to do it, but once you stop and think about it, and then it kind of is actually.
Yeah, I could only imagine. It's got to be a wonderful experience. I mean, that place just looks awesome. I know, watching the NASCAR guys on the regular weekly show or the regular yearly shows down there, it's pretty awesome. And I had the privilege of racing there in the K&N series with Brett Moffitt, and just quite the place. And the thing that I noticed about, of course, when we were down there with the pavement, was the tremendous amount of noise, how noisy it was in the infield, just because with the stadium environment, all that noise is kind of captured inside. And so I'm quite sure by the time feature time comes, when you get more cars on there, it'll probably be the same thing. So where do you start in the feature?
Second row inside.
Awesome. That's a pretty good starting spot.
Yeah, so I'll take it.
You don't have to tell me. That's a dumb question. I want to ask you what you're going to change on the car. Are you going to make any changes to the car?
Nope. Fill it with fuel.
Yeah, I know. Rocky had a sport mod customer, run hot laps today, and the guy had a pretty good time, and he called Rocky on what the changes he was going to say, and he says, I think I'd just go to the hot dog stand, make sure you got air in the tires. I'd probably just race the thing the way it is.
Yep.
Cool. Well, and I know you got anything you want to add, Chad, with Justin on here? I don't want to take any more of your time than we have to. You're welcome to stay on as long as you want to, Justin. Where's my questions?
I don't see any yet.
Okay. Anyway, you're welcome to stay on as long as you want to, but I know you've got a lot of things going on, so it's just a great thing to have you on. We'll get you on again later on a regular night.
Yeah, we'll have to do that. We got some time here. I can stick around for a little bit.
It's raining, so.
Yeah, they haven't started racing, and they're just working the track, so it'll be a little bit.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Tell them about the air taking steer away and not being able to turn. And
yeah, it's like in the late model world, for anybody that's been around that, it's hard to enter behind another late model because it takes air off the nose. And I've seen it in the modifieds even here that have tried to go into the corner directly, like underneath somebody's bumper, and they just push up behind them. There's just
really?
It's interesting. There's a lot of, we're going fast. Like, I mean, I've been to Vegas when Vegas is fast, and I ran a 500 gear or 504 gear, and that's a big track. And I've been to Batesville when Batesville's fast and ran more gear than that even. And I'm running 50 to 60 points less gear here. And so
really?
You're just hauling the mail.
Wow. And people say Batesville's pretty damn fast.
Yeah, exactly. That's the way I thought Batesville was one of the faster tracks I had been to, and G-forces wise too. Batesville was pretty
sure
G-forces, but man, with this banking and these straightaways, you can fly around here, and it literally feels like you're flying sometimes, I think.
Yeah, the Trickle used to say it's like flying a fighter jet in a gymnasium.
Yeah, that's that's an honest good way to put it, because like, just for instance, when I was in an early heat race, and 3 and 4 was still shaded and still had a lot of grip, even though the whole track had grip. and I was go-kart racing around 3 and 4. I mean, you're just turning left the whole time to the mat. I mean, you're just as hard as you can push the pedal.
Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. So, well, we got one question here, or not a question, but a comment for you, Justin. Keith wants to make sure that you can teach Walla how to be back to his winning stuff again. I don't know if you have anything to do with that or not, but I'm just reading the question.
Yeah, well, we tell Walla he should be here, and then he can figure it out.
He should be.
Okay, Jarrett's got a question for you, Justin. Is that your new Deuce car or old style car?
It's the new Deuce car.
New Deuce car. Well, heck, that's a new one to me. I didn't even know there was a new Deuce car. That'll be for another conversation. And Jeff says, yeah, and Up by the Wall was very cool. Did you make any major changes to your car prior to running Bristol? If so, did you do to help the car hold up at those speeds? What did you do to help the car hold up at the speeds?
We basically stiffened the front springs, both sides. I'm trying to think here what else we did. We did that. We haven't touched anything from there since we came here like that. We did up the air pressures in all 4 tires, a couple 3 pounds. That seems to be a pretty common theme that a lot of people are doing that I've heard. And one funny thing is, I ain't afraid to say it. Some people probably get mad at me, but there's a lot of crate cars taking spoilers off.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah. Big old
track's so fast and has so much grip, you don't need the spoiler.
Yeah.
So,
I can imagine. I never thought about that. So are you running a crate motor?
yeah, unfortunately, I'd rather run an open motor, but I ran out of time trying to get here.
Gotcha. Well, you should have pulled some strings with those Stoa and said, make sure. Doug Smith wants to know, it looks good, boss. Keep it up.
Yeah, we're going to try.
Did you make major changes? We already talked about that one, didn't we? Yeah. So did you do a lot of reinforcing to the body and stuff?
No, not really. I mean, we brace them up pretty good anyway anymore. So really didn't do much, just actually refine the edges so that the body stayed good, rebend them and stuff like that. I didn't bother putting a new body on to come here. I'll be the first to admit I wasn't wasting my money coming here with new tin. But I just took old body I had and just, put new bends in it and creased it up good so that it wouldn't be flopped all over. Because you are going at a high rate of speed here for sure.
Now, will you guys, is the modified A feature up after the Sport Mod guys are done, or is there races between the Sport Mod guys and you guys?
There's 602 late model features. I don't know how many, 1 or 2 of them before we're up.
Okay. Awesome. Mike Knuckles, talk bounce, how smooth the racetrack isn't, and is it affecting your vision?
No, not really. It's actually really smooth, honestly. I mean, there's a few little ripples here and there, mainly in turn 3 and 4. And I think it's probably just because it's shaded more. I'm not sure. But it's not bad at all. And I haven't had any issues with disorientation or anything like that. I know if you hit something, it's gonna, just from the speeds. But this 20 lap feature, if we get fortunate enough to make all 20 laps, that's going to tell you where it's at. I mean, honestly, I think these heat races are too long. I know I'm usually a car per lap or a lap per car kind of guy. And I know there's more cars than there is 10 lap heats, but 8 lap heat on this track would probably be plenty.
Yeah, you get to some of those really big racetracks like that. I mean, that's, they're just, they can kind of string things out a little bit. Volga says hi.
Absolutely. It's good buddies back hometown.
Yep. How's the track look? Well, we kind of talked about that, but you can talk about it again.
Yeah, it looks wet now. I just ran up top here before we got on here live, and they were out working it, but there's enough water out there for a while now. It'll take them a little bit to get run in, but they'll get it. The track's really hard, honestly. It's not going to affect it a ton, but it'll be all right.
Johnny Whitman says, good job, Chief.
Thanks, buddy.
Dan's got some questions or comments. Someone a lot smarter than me said that after a few laps, the polished bearings are just like any other bearing. That being said, when you preload a pinion bearing after 1 or 2 nights, is it no longer preloaded? Also, when you set your bearing spacers after a couple of nights, the bearings are loose. So in both cases, the bearings do wear in. Opinions on that, Justin?
I mean, I've had wheel bearings loosen up. I usually tend to just set them a little tighter to begin with. I mean, honestly, one on a customer side, I don't want anybody getting a loose wheel bearing. I'd rather leave my own loose, but not a customer's loose. So I'm going to put them a little tighter initially anyway. The one thing I would say is if you're not, set them dry, don't have any grease in them when you set them. That helps a lot because the grease does, depending on the grease you use, takes up a lot of slack in the bearings. So
right, yeah, good point. Yeah, that is a very good point.
Yeah, and I do agree that after a few nights, a polished bearing is probably similar to a standard bearing. I mean, I think they polish in, they do. It's just but I will say here, I think like the rim finish stuff, so-called, or polished, probably takes heat better than a standard bearing will.
Yeah, that would make sense too. I never thought of it that way, but that's a good point. Darcy Klein can't wait to see a race on Friday.
Yep, they'll be down watching.
Kyle Johnson, how much setup change to the car over your normal tracks?
Yeah, I mean, I could go home right now and I wouldn't be able to turn in a 10-acre field. But it's just front spring stuff just because of the rate of speed you're going. I honestly haven't changed anything in the rear as far as springs or loads or anything like that than I normally run, or the last time I raced. Actually, it's still the same from Batesville when I raced last fall. The front springs are just stiffened up just for the speeds you're at here. It's just crazy.
Well, that's what I told some of our customers, because I went back to some of those notes way back when we, like I said, when we were there with the pavement car, that racetrack, it's kind of like you're hitting a cup. I mean, it's just so hard like that I didn't see the rear springs. I don't remember us ever changing any rear stuff, but I know we had to stiffen the front ends up and a little stiffer sway bar at that time. Are you going to the 12T pit party after you win the feature? Well, hell, Jared, that's a simple question. I can answer that one.
Yeah, Franzen's smarter than that. Well, maybe he is, but everybody else knows the answer.
I'm like, geez, that's kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah, I mean, you can drink on Timmy and RJ. I mean, what? Yeah.
Well, Garrett and I were talking about. Can you imagine the amount of parties in that place tonight?
Last night was dead. Last night was dead. Everybody went to bed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are staying away from the track. They've got Airbnbs and stuff like that. So
yeah, we're off in the hills.
Yeah, a lot of people have. From what I've heard, they have almost an hour drive every night.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a lot of people are. So.
Huh. Okay. Yeah. Johnny Spainhire said, hi, Justin. Mike Knuckles, how much rear stagger increase when you see after practice runs last night?
I honestly didn't even check them because you don't even hardly hurt a tire. I had 2 brand new tires on for the first time I went out yesterday for practice, and they were about 5 lap sessions. And it don't matter if it's 5 or 20, you're wide open the whole time. And I ran those same 2 rear tires for both sessions, and I ran them again in the heat race. And I mean, the right rear, it wore the nubbins off and barely put a feather to it, barely. I mean, nothing I'm concerned with. Didn't hardly even open sipes up. The left rear actually feathered more than the right rear did, but didn't wear the tire. So it's weird.
Huh.
Yeah, I think it's not a lateral force here as much as it is slamming the car down. So
yeah. That's what I told some of the customers. I said, you in all honesty, as I remember the pavement stuff, you weren't as worried about the right rear tire, the left rear tire, because the way the car would go in and the way the air loaded the left rear tire, that it seemed like there was more wear on the left rear tire from back then. Now, of course, this is dirt, so it doesn't really, I mean, it's not comparable, but whatever.
Yeah, I think it's similar though.
How much, watching from Florida, awesome job, Dustin, and Denise O'Brien. How was your tire after 10 laps? Well, you kind of actually just.
Yeah, we kind of got to that in there.
So awesome job, Dustin, Landon Briggs, Pat Fagan. Is it on rain delay now?
Yep. Last time I was upstairs, it was still raining. So
we're downstairs. We're in the media center. We're like 30 feet underground. It's crazy. You can't even hear anything that's going on out there. So.
Mike Knuckles said the open late models are seeing the right rear tire grow 2 inches.
Wow.
Yeah, that right rear tire's growing 2 inches. Well, I won't comment on that. I mean, I'm surprised that that's the case, but I don't doubt it. But anyway, Blake Arndt wants, get Gavin on there instead of Justin's mug.
Yeah, well, tell him to get working on his car.
Yeah, I mean, Gavin's got to be working on his stuff, man. I mean, come on. Kyle, hey, you sound like you're in a bunker, Chad. Well, yeah, they're actually in a basement. The media center is in the middle of the infield in the basement, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's not the middle of it. It's off to the west end.
Yeah, this probably is the storm shelter, I would say.
Yeah. You're welcome, Pat. Anytime we can help you out, old buddy.
You should be here.
If you got any questions, tell us what's new and exciting at Weir's Machine. I mean, we missed that part today.
Yeah, we're just excited to be here. This is quite an event, man. Just coming down for this. This is my first time inside today since 1991 when I was here with my dad for the Cup race. So at that time, it sat 40,000 people. It was. You walk in here, and I put it up against the first time I walked into Lambeau Field. I mean, it's unbelievable. The atmosphere is just crazy, and to have short track racers from all over the country get the opportunity to come here, and us as a manufacturer get to come here and support our team is pretty cool. I mean, you got to give Barry props for going, and Mike for going out on a limb and giving it a shot. You know, I think he's got more criticism than anybody in the world, but it's pretty neat to be able to come to Bristol and run here. And, you know, he won a heat race here. So it's crazy. And everybody says the same thing. It's just unbelievable to be here, you know, on the stage that we're on. So.
Well, I mean, it's got to be, because like when Chad called me earlier and asked about you coming on and you won the heat race, I'm like, well, hell yeah, because that's something that you can never take that away. That's like winning a Super National or something almost. I mean, it's just a huge event. Chad, how much stiffer spring do you run if you are running the new OD drop cup? I realigned my jack bolt to the right in the right front and added the new OD cup, and it feels I need 75 to 100 pounds more stiffer right front spring. Any other feelings the same?
Well, probably not a fair shake for Justin. You know, I think this is your first time with the OD cup here, right?
Yeah.
But then you came to a racetrack where you had to increase rate automatically. So we've had a couple guys run a normal racetrack with stock car and modifieds with the Bearing Cup. And Bob, you did all the testing on it last year, and we've had guys put 25 and 50 pounds in, and I don't know what you had for a difference there, Bob. But
I think we increased it 25 pounds, but where I actually am seeing the difference that these people aren't thinking about, and I'm not taking anything away from the OD Cup, but once you align that jack bolt in the spring so that spring's sitting in that whole thing correctly, that's where your actual experiment or your actual change is, because there's no spring bind now anymore. Everything is running, the spring is running at an angle like it's supposed to, and then that cup is keeping it all aligned. So I think the cup adds to it, but I also think the location of the spring being corrected makes the car feel like it needs more spring, and I'm quite sure it's gonna. I mean, like I said, we ended up upping about 25 pounds, and I was against that at first because I couldn't believe that it would make that much difference, but I mean, it proved it. I mean, we had to. So anyway, yeah, I don't know if I would say, I don't know if you need to go 75 pounds. The biggest thing too is when you're feeling it now, you're feeling it actually moving. But when the car's actually in race mode, it's not going to feel as soft because the car's going to be kind of locked down and sucked down to the track. So I think 25 pounds, I wouldn't adjust 75 pounds. That's way too much. I would start with 25. Is there much science to spring rubbers? For instance, if I had a 550 in the right or in the front, would a spring rubber make it similar to a 600? Well, I'll tell you my experience with that. The biggest thing with a spring rubber, if you can run spring rubbers, now we can't run spring rubbers in IMCA anymore, but if you can run a spring rubber, the biggest thing you need to do is kind of trim that spring rubber so that it goes all the way to the top to the dead coil. If you put it in the middle, you're making a progressive rated spring. And you'll see when you use it on a Raider that it progresses. If you put it all the way to one end, it makes the spring stiffer. So a spring rubber, depending on how stiff the spring rubber is, from my experiences, the spring rubbers that we used to use added about 25 pounds to the stiffness of the spring. So if you had a 550 and you put it all the way to the dead end of the coil, it's going to probably be about 575 pounds if you put it on a Raider. What's your opinion, Justin?
Yeah, that's the thing. I haven't messed with a lot of spring rubbers lately just because we're in the IMCA world so much, but I agree completely. Spring rubbers are used for way more than stiffening or changing rates of springs anymore. It's all about progression and everything else these days, and that's where the ultra force machines and everything have came into play. It's just, I would say 90% of the people that get spring rubbers and get to deal with them and play with them and are good with them aren't using it to up their spring rate. They're using it to change their dynamic load somewhere.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yep, that makes sense. Getting it done on the feature, boss Tyler Schaefer. Waylon Schultz, rain delays are great for playing bags in the pits using the Scoresit scorekeeper. Well, heck, great idea. And if you guys that are listening and you're down there and you need some, go to the Weir's trailer. They'll have some in the trailer. Correct, Chad?
We got them ready to go. Yeah, we
got them on there. So if we get a little bit more rain, you guys are starting to get bored, go to the Weir's trailer.
We should have our own
the catalog, look at the new parts, talk to Austin. He's probably not doing anything anyway. He loves to talk to people.
Probably sitting
and if you do go over there, tell Austin I said hi. The pictures do not do this place justice. We have to see it to believe it. I agree with you, Jeff. No doubt about that. Where's Machine and Ranking? Second this. Yeah, awesome. Bob, can you talk about the extra bar you are adding from the dash to the right front? In the GRT cars, we've always added, and I've just believed, even in the old Harris days and years ago, I've always added an additional bar that goes from the center of the dash bar down towards the right front. And if you look at the way that center of that dash bar is mounted, then that 1.5 by 1.5 tubing, or if you have round tubing that goes to the rear cage and then splits off to the two tail sections, I always believed that having something there that would limit a little bit of flex would transfer weight from the right rear to the left rear. I have no proof of that. I've never had a machine, or I've never had a frame on a machine to actually try that. It's just, we've had guys that didn't have it, put it in, they felt better, they thought the car was better, had a little more traction. So that's kind of my opinion. What's your opinion, Justin, on that? You don't have one of the, you've got, your bars are more, you've got two bars in the top, keeping the whole front end square.
Yeah, we don't run, I know what bar you're talking about. We don't run it. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you. That's the principle of it. I would agree it's the same principle, but I have no proof either.
Yeah. So. XL 2020 GRT modified. What is the ideal location for the left rear shock on the Weir's bird cage from the bottom of the axle? I'm currently running 5-inch. I think 5-inch would be perfectly fine as long as you've got enough. I mean, the biggest thing on that is you're changing a little bit of the indexing into the shock. You're quickening that up. I think we actually put the cars out of here standard as a 6-inch bracket, but what's your opinion on that, Chad?
Yeah, most of the cars are at a 6 or a 7-inch drop, but it's just going to speed it up so the car will transition into the corner faster, I would say.
And just to add, they're talking from the center of the axle tube down. I think he said bottom of the axle. So you'd have to add 1.5 inches. So he's at, if that's right, he says 5, he'd be at 6.5. So he's basically right in the middle. So.
Yeah, okay, sure. Makes sense. Larry, are you guys running heavier rear hubs and drive plates or the front rotors with the bigger bearings?
I can tell you what I did. I put a new rotor on the right front. It wasn't nothing different. Everything we run, same metric rotor on a 3-piece spindle. I just put a brand new one on with new bearings. Just made me feel better. And then I put a new hub on the right rear with new bearings. But I got the same strange oval drive plate that I ran on the previous 10 nights on the car. So haven't heard of anybody having any issues yet. I don't think we will. I don't think there'll be any issues on the right side unless it's rough.
Yeah.
And I don't think there'll be a lot of issues with part failures if it's smooth, because the banking loads the entire car. It's not just slam. You don't just slam the right front or the right rear. You don't really move the right rear a lot anyway out there. The right front will move, especially if you're tight or whatever, but you can slam that down, but most everybody's went stiffer on springs, so everybody's got it under control, and it just loads the entire car. So
now, did you see that you had a lot more left front shock travel than you normally would have on a standard racetrack?
Not really, I don't think, because of the speed. I haven't really paid a whole lot of attention to it, as far as I was in open air the whole time in my heat race, so I didn't have to slow down lift for anybody. I didn't have to make an abrasive move or an abrupt move. If you have to lift into the corner for a little more extended period of time, it's probably going to, because that banking is, like I told you off air, when you slow down enough to exit the racetrack and you're in the banking, your head feels like it's laying against the window net. There's some banking out there.
That's just amazing. Huh. Okay. Let's see. Chad, which OD cups? Keith Matt talks. Which OD cups? What do you mean, which OD cups?
Stock car, 5.5, maybe.
I assume with him.
If you're asking what ones, if a drop cup works in the right front, I'd run the drop OD cup in the right front and the tall cup in the left front. Unless you're not coming off the spring, you can run the short one.
He's got more down at the bottom to read.
Oh, Justin. Now he's on you.
Oh, it's one of us.
Oh,
I don't know the part numbers.
Part numbers for stock car. So it's so 485 D-5.5 would be the drop 5.5. 485 T-5.5 would be the tall, and 485 S-5.5 would be the short.
And now, do you have the bearing package available now for the 5.5?
Yeah, we have the 5.5-inch bearings ready to go. We're having a little bit of a supply issue from the bearing manufacturers, so I believe we're getting the next batch of bearings. What is today? I think next week. So, I mean, we got them in stock, but we've kind of been on life support with a few of the bearing companies lately. But so the 5.5 one, we just made an adapter ring and used the 5-inch bearing is what we're doing on that one, because the 5.5 standard one is being made, but it's probably 4 or 5 months down the road. So we just went to work, and Billy and I sat down and engineered an adapter ring to use the 5-inch bearing, but be in a 5.5 cup and be centered and work good. So that's what we're doing right now. So
cool. Cody says, yeah, make Jared work. Tanner Coltman, I bet Austin and Jared would love some company. Well, yeah, everybody, it's raining. They all need to stop over the Weir's trailer.
Jared's the one-armed bandit, so he's about half of Jared.
Oh, gotcha. James, would you run a sport mod with more trail to get it to turn, or would you prefer to add stagger, and why? I'll let you answer that one first, Justin. Would you rather run stagger to make the car turn, or would you put trail in it?
It kind of depends what you're trying to do, I think. And both affect each other all the time and through the corner, but I personally will use stagger if I just need to be turning all the time more. I tend to tune my rear steer leader trail for exit anymore, just as far as keeping the car square or whatever I need it to do.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%, because if the car's tailing out on you coming off the corner, you need to take some of that trail out of it. And one thing about it, if you've got trail in the car's going to be loose pretty much about everywhere. I mean, it's going to be okay getting in, but the second you're on the throttle, it's going to want to try to trail the car a little bit. Where stagger, the driver can kind of drive it a little different. It seems like when you run trail, if you have to run to the top or the bottom of the racetrack, the car's different. If you've got stagger, it seems like it's more consistent to make lane changes. Just my opinion, or that's what I've observed. Dan, is the reason people are tying the right front down is because using a softer right front spring and using the same load numbers, it makes the ride height too high. I'll let you guys have at that one.
So I assume they're talking about running on softer spring and getting the ride height high to get the left rear down so you can run more spoilers, is what I assume there. But
and that would be the reason why you would want to do that, and the thing is tying it down, now depending on where you're actually racing and what sanctioning body, some of these sanctioning bodies are getting pretty, they're not wanting to have a lot of load on that right front spring. They want to be able to take the shock off without any load on there. Where with the softer springs, it was working better when you could put a little bit load against the shock. So yeah, that's kind of what my opinion would be. How can I get a copy of the spring height table Chad has shown in regards to using drop cups? Also, do you guys suggest an outside grab cup on the right rear of a sport mod? Oh, by all means on the right rear of a sport mod. I'd actually rather have one on the right rear. If I could only have one spring cup, Audi cup on a car, it would be on the right rear of a sport mod. I think the right rear is the one that needs that the most. The right side's definitely for sure.
If you want that print, you just send us an email and request the spring table prints, and Billy will gladly email them to you.
Awesome. Chad or Justin, which spring OD cup part numbers are?
We answered that.
Okay.
Yeah.
How may we keep a 3-link car from getting up on the chain? Left rear is in front on the slider. Slider goes in and out. Okay. Right rear on top, about 28 degrees. Left rear bar angle. Easy up left rear shock. Just looking for other possible issues.
What may keep it up from getting up?
What's your guys' opinion on that one?
Go ahead.
I mean, if you've got all of that stuff in there, I'd almost be looking for some binds someplace.
Yeah.
Because all of that stuff would lead me to believe there's no reason that thing shouldn't get up on the bar. Because if you're at static at 28 degrees, you're going to be 45 degrees dynamically, 44, 45 in that neighborhood. So I would have to say there's something that's binding somewhere. And don't forget to check we've had some guys that have had some rod end bearings that go bad on the third link, and that can affect things. And even on the right rear, there might be something that's goofy on the right rear that will affect the left rear getting up. So, I'd be pulling every piece of rear suspension out of there and checking anything I could to see if there's any bind.
You might check, just to add in there, I just had a customer have this issue, drive shaft bottoming out in the transmission.
Oh yeah, we got that on video, don't we, Chad? Yeah, drive shaft bottoming out. Yeah, I never thought about that. Good point. Great job. Justin, I heard there's been a bunch of engine failures at Bristol. Any idea if they have been more crates or more open motor failures?
There has been quite a few motor failures, yes. I know personally there's been probably 50-50, honestly, of open motors versus crates. From what I know, I haven't been following it too close, but I had, just for example, Jonathan Loeb. He blew up an open motor in 2 laps of practice yesterday, and it scattered it through the oil pan. I mean, it's not a knock against an engine builder. This place is wicked, and one little failure of who knows what just takes it out. I mean, and then we get these crate motors. I heard through the grapevine, I just overheard some people talking that one guy broke 2 604s already. One guy in both practice sessions, he broke one. I don't know if that's true. I just heard that. I know another 602 in a sport mod broke. I believe, not to name names, but I believe Kyle Brown hurt a crate motor last night. I seen he won his heat tonight, so that's good. I don't know how bad it was. It didn't seem too bad, but I seen him in the infield last night when we were practicing, and he said he hurt one. So it's hard on things here, that's for sure. You're just, everybody that's probably watching, or a lot of people, have raced on a quarter or 3/8 mile track and been wide open all the way around it for maybe even a heat race of 8 laps and thought that was the coolest thing in the world. Well, we're running 10 laps on a track that's probably twice as big as most people that typically race on, and you're wide open for 10 laps. And it's on a crate motor, like for me anyway. I think just lifting, I was on the chip. I don't think it matters what gear you run here. I mean, it does, but I don't think it matters. You're going to hit the chip. You're just going so fast and going to gain so much speed. You're going to hit the chip. And so I think I felt like I was on the chip for half the straightaway, and I just lifted on corner entry. I probably could have went in there wide open, but I just thought, not going any faster with the motor on the chip, so I might as well just lift and let it breathe a little bit.
Well, I think that's the key. I remember when we used to run the Harris Clash at Knoxville, people would break motors at the end of that straightaway. It's just, people just don't understand. The poor little engine doesn't have a chance to breathe on something that fast. They just put it up on the screen that the races are postponed till Tuesday at 2 p.m.
Perfect. I guess we'll be here a while.
Yeah. Okay. Andy, UMP modified plus 1 right front lower control arm. Are they available yet at Weir's? Is a plus 1 control arm available?
We're working on it. It wasn't as easy of a change as we thought. We thought we could use the same CNC bent laser tubes as a standard, but we're definitely going to have to change them. So we're redesigning them tubes right now and changing the fixtures. So hopefully in the next month.
Awesome. So when a track slicks off, how much and what effect does it give a modified when you take the right rear load out of the spring?
You can get a bunch of different opinions on that one, I think. It makes sense in my mind that if you added load, you're going to add more grip to the right rear tire, but I've done it personally and taken load out of the right rear, and I got more grip. So, I think I like to think about it old schools. If I'm putting load in it, I'm adding ride height. And if I'm taking load out, I'm taking ride height out.
Yeah. So. I would agree with that one, no doubt. What's a good starting point for chain drop length on the left rear? Well, actually, that's a situation where you almost need to talk to the chassis manufacturer on how he wants you to measure that. That would be my recommendation. But what would your suggestion be on how to answer that question?
I agree 100%. Everybody's, as you know, everybody's bar angles are different, or where there's, what chassis builder wants them here, there, we probably all end up similar at the end, but if you start with 10 more degrees statically than I do, we probably shouldn't run as much chain, so I think you definitely, if you want a number, 4 inches, I think is a good number for most everybody. I don't care what brand of car it is, but definitely your chassis builder should get you in the right direction.
Well, it's all about the end game. You're going to want to, set it so that, as a rule of thumb, I wouldn't think you would want to go a whole lot more than 50, 52 degrees upper angle. So if you jack up underneath the seat, that's going to be close. Unless you clamp the right rear down, you're going to want to start with a couple of degrees less because you're going to get 2 degrees more in actual race mode. But that would be a maximum spot to start, and then just adjust it from there. Would a half mile like Davenport or West Liberty versus Bristol be different on your decision to stiffen the springs on a modified? Well, I think Justin can probably agree with this. There is no half mile in Iowa that's going to compare to the load value that you're going to have on a racetrack like Bristol. The way that racetrack is built, and the thing with, like, say, Davenport and West Liberty, you're going to still get a lot more right side load than you will, even if the racetrack would need to be banked more on those smaller racetracks or those less banked racetracks. What's your opinion, Justin?
Definitely. Davenport and West Liberty are both flat tracks, probably some of the flattest ones. I haven't been to Davenport's half mile too much, but I've been to Liberty a couple times, and they're definitely flat. And you're going to have more right side load there because of a flat track. But I don't even know if I'd call it more load. You're just going to have more body roll because the banking. But if you're comparing it to Bristol, there is nothing you can ever compare to Bristol. Maybe some of these Tennessee guys can in the late models because of Tazewell and Bulls Gap and Volunteer Speedway and all them places are super banked like this, but they're not as big as this track. But the one thing that's crazy is when the track is not black, when it's fresh here at Bristol, you don't even turn left into the corner. The banking turns you. It's weird. Like you fight the steering wheel to the right to stay on the racetrack. And if anybody's been watching this whole broadcast on Race XR of the Bristol races, the practices, they put moguls down on the apron tonight because the banking forces the car down the track, and not every car, but a lot of cars were ending up racing on the apron and not up on the racetrack. So they put moguls down there and painted the humps of the dirt white so that you can see them. And it's helped. It's made the racetrack way better as far as the racing. But there's no comparison to what this place is like. It's amazing. I'm not going to say the racing's good, bad, or otherwise because that'll be yet to be determined. But it's just as far as what this track can do to your car, there's nothing to compare it to in my eyes. Not for me that I've ever been on.
I don't think there's any place that I can even think of. I-70, when that was pavement or dirt, that would be a good one.
Yep.
But still, in comparison, there's until you've been to Bristol, it's unexplainable until you actually see it.
One thing to add to like the banking deal, this is kind of off subject, but I see Chris is talking about the motor failures with the AccuSumps and stuff, and it just made me think of it. Yes, guys are using AccuSumps. I heard one guy think that caused his motor failure. I don't know how it did, but regardless, there's been a lot of people using them. But when I slowed down under practice and I felt like my head was against the window net, the first thing I thought of was, if my head feels like it's against the window net, all the oil's in the left side of the pan, and it might not be in the pickup. So, because we're designed to be to the right side of the car.
Right.
And so I hurried up and drove down to the apron just to get somewhat level. It probably didn't matter, but in my mind, I was kind of concerned about it because I know, a legend in our area, Larry Eckrich, you know him, Bob, he went back in the, 70s and 80s. He had made comment to me prior to coming here that they, guys blew up motors at I-70. That's why I thought of it when you brought up I-70, because when they slowed down under yellow or under pace laps, all the oil was in the left side of the van.
All the oil went to the left side.
That's made me think of that. So,
yeah, very good point. So Keith says it looks like you're staying for the rest of the show then.
Yeah, I guess we'll be here all night.
Yeah, he's going to be here another
15.
15 minutes. Looks like 11. Yeah, 15. Thoughts on going past 0 degrees pinion angle when hiked up on a 3-link? I've heard mixed emotions when it comes to this subject. I've just always wanted to make sure. My thought always was when you're under total power, I would really like to see that pinion angle be close to 0 so that you're not using any additional horsepower, you're not binding anything. That's just my opinion. What are your guys' thoughts?
That's what I agree with too. But I do think there's some stuff happening now, and it kind of depends how you determine an pinion angle. If you just put an angle finder on it and say, oh, it's 0. Well, if you're at full drop on your left rear up against the chain and you're at 0 degrees, your drive shaft still has angle in it. You're still not binding the U-joint, but you're still using the U-joint.
Right.
And I'm bringing this up because crate racing, and you talk to all these East Coasters have crate raced for years compared to what us Midwesterners have, especially late model stuff. And they're all about eliminating drive shaft angle now and all that. So to go above 0, if you're considering 0 being an angle finder on there, on your quick change or 9-inch or whatever, that's fine. But I know there's guys with these pull down rigs and stuff that are actually lining their drive line up at full drop. So in that case, I don't see how you'd have to be above 0, so to speak. And it makes no sense if you're an old boy because they always told you couldn't have a drive shaft in line or you take a U-joint out. But that's what they're doing now. They're trying to. So
that's interesting. So Chad, how much, and Chris, we actually answered your question here. Justin just talked about that. Chad, how different is Bristol since the last time you were here? Or were you here there with your dad and besides the dirt?
Well, it's unbelievable. I was here in 1991 and the place sat 40,000 people. I mean, there's 40,000 people on the front straightaway now. It's just unbelievable. Like you walk in it, they call it a Coliseum. So
it's the last great Coliseum.
6th largest seating capacity in the world, I think, or something they said when we were walking down here. So it's just unbelievable, man. The vibe you get. I was coming underneath the first time in the tunnel, and I'm sure you felt it too. But man, I had chill bumps walking in this place.
Yeah, you should try driving a car down in here the first time. I kind of purposely did it, but when I got here, late Saturday night, I didn't practice Saturday. I practiced Sunday, and I never came up to the track and watched until it was my turn to drive the car down in there. And I kind of did it purposely just to get that feeling because I've been here too. I've been here for a cup race 3 times. Fortunate enough, knew the right people. I got to come to the pits, the infield for a cup race or for a bush race actually, back when it was the Bush series. And it was, lack of a better term, it was cool as hell then.
Yeah.
But to be able to drive down in there, when you pop up and go down on the track, it's like you couldn't see anything but grandstands for a minute, and then all of a sudden you just fall down onto the racetrack. And it's like, whoa, this is steep.
It's kind of like a roller coaster.
Yeah, it's like I don't even know if I could stop in the middle of the track if I wanted to. I mean, it's obviously not that bad, but that's the feeling you get. It's unfortunate that not everybody could be here, and I know people chose not to come for various reasons, and that's cool. I was lucky enough to be able to be here, been lucky enough to win a heat race now, and it's just win, lose, or draw. We're all going to lose money here. It's just the way it is, but it's really cool. I'll be straight up honest. I'm kind of over that part of it now because I've been down in here into the infield. I've drove the car down here, been on the track. But, man, if I could stand in victory lane at Bristol Motor Speedway, it'd be pretty bad.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. So, I can talk a big talk now about how I'm over that, but I don't care who you are. If you end up in victory lane,
they should have at least a plaque or trophies for victory lane there.
Yeah, I would think.
No doubt. No doubt. Yeah, it's kind of to the point where the checks of material at this point.
Right. Yeah.
Big ass trophy. Yeah. It says Bristol Motor Speedway.
Exactly. And I want to throw in too, just like for people relating like to that question with Chad about how it's different is a lot of people have been to a football game, an NFL football game, or a college football game. A lot of college stadiums are bigger than NFL stadiums now. And like the Big House at Michigan holds 110,000 people. It's like, I think it's the largest football stadium, I believe. That's a football stadium. And this place holds, I've heard 140 to 180,000 people. I mean, it's massive. You could probably fit 4 football fields in here.
Yeah.
In the infield. It's pretty sweet. I mean, it's big.
No doubt about that. Well, one thing I wanted to comment on, of course, we finally got through with all the schools. And for those of you who might not have been able to attend any of the RTI schools, they're still available on IMCA TV. You can still sign up there and get the full school for a full year. March 29th is going to be our next show, Chad. And then we've got some special announcements regarding the Harris Clash. And of course, I got to mention the Harris Clash. It's only 141 days away. Kind of like Larry Mack on NASCAR's TV show. 141. Tomorrow will be only 140. But we got a new thing coming up. This is the 30th year. So we're going to do a lot of things related to 30s. So stay tuned for a huge announcement on one of the things we're going to be doing. I was hoping I could release the information today, but we're one confirmation of being able to do that. I should have that tomorrow. So that information should be out soon. But a lot of exciting news around the Harris Clash. Like I said, only 141 days away. Next question. Tyler wants to know, should the toe be set dynamic or static? How do you do that, Justin?
I'm a static guy. I try to, and I know times are changing a lot and fast. And I mean, if you think as a racer trying to keep up with technology is hard, you should try being a chassis builder. Or, I mean, I swear to God, we're getting told something new every hour, and it's about impossible to keep up. I try to be. I mean, we know dynamic stuff, and obviously we work with it and play with all that stuff. But for 90% of people, static is still the way to go. Let your chassis, or talk to your chassis builder about it. They probably know, and if they've gone through the work, it's good for them. Let them do that work. If you want to do it as a racer, more power to you. That's great. Nothing wrong with it, but you're going to get 100 different opinions on what's right.
Yeah, I would agree with Justin 100% on that, because the thing we have to understand is this sport's getting difficult enough the way it is. And like Justin just said, just being on this side of the industry, I bet you there's 3 things per day I hear about something new or something's going on, or have you seen this, or have you talked to this about this? Heck, I mean, Weir's had a new load stick machine that I didn't even know nothing about. And of course, 2 weeks ago, I had to hear about that on the Bob and Chad show again.
Don't worry, I don't know about it either.
You didn't? All right, well, I don't feel so bad then. Anyway, point being is we got to make this stuff simple for the guys to understand. And the chassis builders, more than likely, he's went through all the dynamic side of that thing because they built the car, so they know what they're doing. So if they tell you they want 3/8 of an inch static, don't question it. Do what they're telling you to do, because they spent the time, they spent the money, they spent the effort, and they've got this all figured out. So, like Justin said, if you want to do it, the problem is if you did it, I don't know if I could tell you, I wouldn't know what number to give you.
I can give you my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, so what?
Everybody's got an opinion.
Steve Knight, Bristol has very banked straightaways also. Most Iowa dirt tracks are mainly flat. This adds considerable load. Yeah, Steve, you're 100% right on that. People don't understand it. Bristol's straightaway has more bank in it than a lot of the actual racetracks that we race on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
So it's definitely.
Yeah. The transition from straightaway here to corner is what gets you. That's where the big load comes at.
John says, does the Weirs make a drop cup 5-inch OD alignment cup? Yeah, they definitely do. You bet. Go online to their website. Ryan actually put the part number and everything on there for you, so you've got it. What's your opinion of a stiffer right rear on an IMCA A mod? I think it kind of depends on the rest of the story, but what?
Yeah, I mean, anymore, I'm sure even here, you'll have guys from a 200 to a 350 probably in the right rear, and it all depends on the load number, ride height number. Everybody is so far over the map right now. It goes back to what we just said a little bit ago. It's trying to keep up with it all is impossible these days. And I mean, I'm just going to throw it out. A 225 is probably the most common anymore.
Yeah, I would say so. That's the number that I hear.
Shaw guys and Jeff Taylor and everybody else, and everybody seems to be right around there. But I know there's guys in the 300 range too. And it's just where you're trying to end up, and it's a package deal anymore.
Okay, let's see here. Great job, Bob and Chad. Thanks for the great show from Bristol. John talks about he's 30 years old and he expects trick mod light shocks. Get Bobby on that. I'll pass that word on to him. I actually am not going to see him probably tomorrow because he's going to be playing daddy at home and helping mom and doing some things at home and taking a little bit of time off. When I did walk by his shock shelf today, I thought to myself, oh boy. And like I told him, don't worry about it. You'll have to understand.
You're not going to tag back in?
Well, I'm actually thinking about going in there tomorrow. I could probably get 3 or 4 done in a day. I mean, I'm pretty sure I could. I mean, it might take a little while, but I feel stupid about this. I went to dyno some shocks for a guy today, and I pulled up the screen on the shock dyno, and I'm like, it's been a couple of years since I've run this machine. Now, what's the button you push? Oh, yeah, the one that's got the shock going up and down for us dummies to figure this out. Got it. But there for a minute, I was starting to panic. I'm like, oh my God. But anyway, Justin, do you set the toe out or the toe, setting the right front tie rod to use specific length and then adjusting the left? I've seen some cars running some extreme toe numbers. Do you guys adjust bump steer setting to match these toe numbers? That's a lot in one question there.
Yeah, I mean, you can. That goes right back to you're going to get a different opinion from everybody. I mean, I know people not with my stuff, but just in other people in the industry that one guy thinks you shouldn't run bump steer, and the next guy thinks you should run bump steer, and so as a general rule of thumb, I mean, I'll tell you, yes, we set a right front tie rod length. It's kind of, there's a lot of reasons to it, but the main reason is because we run all these bent tie rods, and they're not the easiest thing to adjust on a race car. So we set that length, and you can have all your spares set in the trailer that length, and you don't ever worry about it. It's easy to adjust the left side.
Yeah.
But the bump steer deal, you can go on for days and argue for days about what's right or wrong on that deal. We're not asphalt. So asphalt, I think it's pretty clear cut that you're going to minimize your bump and do all that. But I mean, just to be generic, because it is a general question of how to do it, you could run 0 bump, say, and a ton of toe out, or you could run a lot of bump and a little toe out, and you can end up at the same result. So
yeah, your end result's going to be the same.
And I know guys 10 years ago that did that, and so who knows? I mean, it's
once again, I probably would recommend asking your chassis manufacturer, because he probably has a legitimate reason why he's done something the way he did. And to save yourself and him some headaches, just follow his advice. Brian, Bob, do you have anybody on that new Swift tight coil rear spring? No, I do not. I'm quite sure Justin probably has a little more information about that, because I know some of his customers run that tight or have run that tight spring. I know what Kelly Shyrock told me. He likes it in his stock car, but he's not a super fan of it, and he's modified, and that's all the information I have.
Yeah, same deal. The customers that I have that do run it or have tried it, The ones that like it are going to be a stock car or a 2-link car. The 4-link guys that I haven't cared for it.
Well, that was what Kelly's comment was when I asked him about it. Cade, hi Cade, how you doing? What's the ideal goal for caster and camber degrees on a right front in a dynamic state? Well, I mean, you're going to want that's a great question. You're going to want to have a little bit of camber left in the right front because you don't want the right front rolling over. But the idea is when the car's in dynamic state, getting the full maximum out of your tire. But you have to factor in, if you're setting this and you're checking this on your cement floor, it's going to be a little different. The impact that it's going to have on that right front tire as compared to when you're racing it. So I couldn't tell you what degree. I guess Justin, you'd probably have to answer this one. I am not sure.
Yeah, caster wise, I mean, you can, there again, it's a chassis builder deal. They got their stuff. I mean, I know chassis gain or caster gains, caster loss, zero caster, that's all over the map, whatever your chassis builder has built in. And some chassis have adjustments built in for that. One thing I was going to mention on the camber gain stuff is, the trend these days is to run a bunch of right front camber. And a lot of that has to do with the cars rolling over more. You lose camber when you do that. Your left rear hikes up more, you lose camber. And people want to check tire temps of their, 3 places on the tire or whatnot on your right front. Well, this is my opinion, but in a go-kart years ago, 20 years ago, 25 years ago when I raced go-karts, a guy told me that, well, your right front, I said your right front should be even all the way across for heat. And he says, why? You don't race in the middle of the corner, but twice each lap. That's when your tire needs to be on the track. Down the straightaway, the inside of the tire is going to heat up. So your inside of your tire should always be hotter, is what he told me. And then ever since then, it just kind of made sense to me to be like that,
It does.
So I mean, I will say too, one thing I forgot with this Bristol deal, since we're here, I took camber out of the right front tire because you don't need it with banking, with this much banking. So it's just something else to think about when you go to different places like that.
Good point. Good old hi, Dad.
Hi guys, miss ya.
Yeah. He'll be home soon. Not probably soon enough, but he'll be home soon. Todd, thanks for the info. Appreciate that, Todd. Jolene, seconds per lap, mile per hour. Yep, I can't disagree with that 100%. All right, guys. Well, big thank you to Justin. I sure appreciate that you could come on, and especially an ideal night to have you on after winning a heat race at Bristol Motor Speedway. That's just a over-exciting, awesome thing. Now I can actually say I know somebody that won a heat race at Bristol Motor Speedway. Jeez, what a deal. All right, so you're going to be saving autographs for the next time we see you, okay?
Yep.
Justin? All
Yep.
right.
Sounds good.
All right, sounds good. Well, thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you, customers. We appreciate your business, and thanks for watching this show. Have a good night.
Thanks, guys.